Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome back to Beautifully Broken. My name is Sabby, and if you don't know who I am, I started a YouTube channel called Beautifully Broken over a year ago, where I started giving tips, guidance, tools, and knowledge on how we can better understand ourselves, our past and present stories, and in doing so, we can help heal our mental health. I help others gain a deeper understanding of themselves so that they can heal what needs to be healed in order to move forward into a happier sense of self. I believe that in looking back at the traumas, emotional wounds, and old narratives we carry, that we learn what needs to be healed in order to better our mental health. Welcome back, everyone, to Beautifully Broken. Today, I have something different. Today, I'll be talking to a really good friend of mine, Jordan Vega. I went to school with him, actually, at Whittier College, and we stayed in touch for a little bit, and I've seen a lot of his material on Instagram and his journey through his mental health, so I thought it would be really helpful for him to come on here and tell us a little bit about his story, his struggles with mental health, and his advice, and anything that may resonate with anyone else out there.
Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. And I mentioned earlier, I'm truly appreciative of, having the opportunity to share my experiences and my message and, the way mental health has affected my life in a positive way. So thank you so much for allowing me to be part of your podcast. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I feel like, we spoke before. Your story really resonates with me personally. So I feel like it could definitely help someone else out there and make them feel less alone.
Awesome. So let's see. You guys know, my name is Jordan Vega. I am currently a Doctor of Chiropractic student studying sports medicine at SCU. And let's see, before my career in chiropractic, I actually had a very successful career in digital marketing. It started off in professional sports, and then it branched off into some freelance work in fashion and entertainment. And then ultimately, I landed my last position as a senior digital marketing analyst for AEG. That was an amazing career that I had, and ultimately is something I'm so thankful for. But it really did paint the picture and show me what I really want to do for the rest of my life. And it really allowed me to return back to my passions. So I'm truly thankful for my previous career in digital marketing, as it, will pan out and hopefully benefit me in my next career as a chiropractor. But before that, I got my master's in sports management in 2015. I got my bachelor's in kinesiology at Whittier College, where we met. I think we met our freshman year of
Yeah.
college.
Yeah,
You,
and we were in the same dorm, I think.
that's right. Yeah. Did you live above me? Was it the floor above me that you
Yeah,
lived?
I was in third floor. I was in third floor Stauffer, where it was
Ah,
like
yes.
half boys, half girls.
That's right. I totally remember that now. It was a nice mixture, but weird at the same time. And like being a small university, like, we all knew each other within like the first couple of weeks. So that's crazy.
My roommate freshman year, what was her name? Amy.
Amy, yes, Amy
Amy, that's how
Hilton.
we met. Yeah. I think that we met through her specifically. I'm pretty
That's
sure.
that's right, because we were in like the same like selective or something like that with Dr. Holmes and Dr. Cook
Yes.
and stuff,
Yeah.
right? There we go. It's all coming back. I
Oh
love that.
my
I love
God. Blast
that.
from the past. Yeah. And then like
Yeah.
we intermittently would run into each other like the rest of the year. I didn't and then at that point I think,
Can't believe we lived, right underneath each other. And then, here we are all these years later having like, this moment. It's pretty magical in my opinion.
yeah, I think it's so cool how people reconnect years later. I think that that's amazing.
So, bachelor's from Whittier College. I grew up in Southern California in Los Angeles. I'm born and raised. I grew up in a very, traditional Mexican American household. My parents are first generation Mexican Americans, and so that made me second generation Mexican American. And it was this weird, like, not this weird, this beautiful duality of, this Christian, Baptist, and Catholic faith that was structured and surrounded our cultural heritage that was, being Mexican and, identifying and figuring out, like, how our culture resonated with us as being Mexicans, but also being American, born in what, the early 1990s.
Mhm.
So, during that whole cultural shift that we were all experiencing, the whole cultural awareness in itself. So, I grew up, very in, typical middle class Latino family in Los Angeles,
And was your
where
mental health at that point like pretty prominent, or like had you been struggling when you were younger, or did it happen more like in your late adulthood, or
I ultimately don't think I was aware of my mental health, and I thought like maybe I was happy because of the things that I was doing because it was pleasing other individuals.
yeah.
And I don't think I knew any better for a long period of time, until that people pleasing ultimately exploded in my face. And I didn't realize that until maybe my early 20s. And I think maybe all of us start to have some sort of realization in, like, your early to mid 20s as to, wait a second, things aren't working out the way, and I'm not feeling the way I know I should be feeling or what I deserve to be feeling.
Yeah.
And so that's when, I started making my mental health integration was, not until like my early to mid 20s.
Was there anything that like that set you off in a way or triggered you to have that realization of like, okay, mental health is a thing, and that you need to be more aware of it or anything like that?
I knew I had experienced trauma in my life. Um, and I was aware of that trauma going into like and the trauma associated with my coming out experience.
Mhm.
I was aware of that trauma going into college, into my young adulthood and into my mid 20s adulthood as well. And over time, I saw my actions as direct repercussion of that unhealed trauma. I was acting in ways that was rooted in that trauma, that wasn't healthy for me. It
Yeah.
wasn't benefiting me in a multitude of ways. And so I was aware of that trauma, but ultimately, what made me want to go and kind of heal from that trauma was a culmination of things. I think it took some maturity on my end, some growth within myself to finally say, okay, I think I want to go to therapy, or I want to go to therapy. But
Mhm.
then also, the cultural, societal, and financial components that are associated with mental health. And for me, at my point in time, I wanted to see a therapist and I wanted to talk to someone. So, coming to terms with that my own self maturity and all, like, the cultural, financial, social aspects, is it took some time for myself.
Could you highlight why that had traumatized you so much and what maybe prevented you from either wanting to come out, or like what happened exactly, and then in turn, like how did that trauma influence you, later on without you recognizing it? Because you had mentioned that you were, certain action you noticed that certain actions were a direct reflection of unhealed trauma. Can you highlight some of those?
Yeah, of course. So I think I was aware of my self-hate. I was aware of my guilt. I was aware of my shame in myself. Um, I think when I realized that I was gay, I remember I think I had mentioned, I grew up in a very, like, Christian, Baptist, Catholic, Latino family culture, which helped me in so many ways. Like, I am so thankful for the lessons and the discipline and the love that I received in many other realms of my life. But, when it came to the aspect of me being gay and me, like, loving myself, it was something that what wasn't it was frowned upon
Yeah.
necessarily, and it was looked down upon in every single aspect. And I think at that point in time, it was like what, the early 2000s. Yeah, LGBT culture like was a thing and part of like mainstream media, but in terms of like really branching out in terms of educating, like, the suburbs, where I was growing up, and that small town feeling, it takes some time. And I think as a society, we were all growing through that evolution. And looking back on it now, it was a beautiful opportunity for me to see my own growth within myself and acceptance in my sexuality and who I was, to kind of mirror the at least America's acceptance with LGBT individuals. So
Yeah.
it's been a nice parallelism that I've seen, within my own story and with the overall societal acceptance and global acceptance of its LGBT individuals. But ultimately, going back to that, like, I was aware of, the disapproval, the hate, I guess the shadow band, the unspoken, the evil,
Like the taboo,
all
yeah.
exactly the taboo things were associated with being LGBT or being gay, because that's what I was taught. That's what I knew. I remember learning about AIDS, in school, and I remember being this little paragraph, and I remember something like they learned about Harvey Milk, and I honestly thought that, and for all intents and purposes, it was, AIDS was and still is, like, a pandemic that came
Yeah.
through the LGBT community, and specifically affected gay men, and killed off generations of gay men, for individuals like myself to look up to kind of model after, to be exposed to. I mean, granted, I know LGBT individuals, we are everywhere and we are vibrant and proud in everything that we do. But that was my only focal point in terms of what being gay was it was being and associated with AIDS. So
Mm.
I thought for the longest time that I was a disease, that I was like dirty, that I was like sinful, and all these these words all kind of mirrored the same ideology that I was experiencing from the church that I was going to, what my parents were telling me, from what society and my community was telling me. So there was a lot of self hate there. And then I think
Yeah.
ultimately, like, um, there were, suicidal thoughts all the time, 100%. Did I act on those suicidal thoughts? I did not. And I think, that has made me strong, and what has allowed me to kind of grow and, look back at these moments. These were such pivotal times in my life, that I chose not to act on those suicidal thoughts.
Oh, yeah, that's
And
huge. That's huge.
and my coming out experience in itself was traumatic. All For all intents and purposes, I was gay bashed multiple times, for coming out, and it mortified me, and it has direct implications to how I act as an adult today.
Yeah.
And I it took me a long time to accept that trauma, to accept that that happened to me, and that was not okay, and that I was valid for feeling the feelings that I was feeling, at that time. That, that hate. I thought, like, I was wrong for even feeling like, that I was hateful, because everyone was telling me that I was hateful, that I was evil, or that I was, messed up or going to hell. I thought I really did deserve this.
Yeah.
And so it was something that I just became accustomed to. And like in that self, there's so much toxicity and so much unlearning that I had to do to realize that I didn't deserve that, and I didn't deserve that type of love, and and no one deserves that type of love moving, like, ever.
Yeah,
And so I had
100%.
so there were direct implications from, like, my own coming out experience. And granted, it wasn't just like, a one-time thing that happened and done. This was over years, periods of time. that I learned to accept the hate that I was given, and to that it was okay to hate myself. So
Mhm.
that process took me a lot to unlearn, and then ultimately it turned me into a people pleaser.
Oh,
As
yeah.
I went out into my young adulthood life,
I remember
you know,
you briefly telling me on the phone the other day about codependency. How was that for you? I know because I went to a codependency meet, actually several, and my first meeting for me was the most eye-opening. How like what was that experience like for you? What prompted you to see that light and go down that path and realize that that's what it was?
Yeah, so it was actually after, I'm married. I love my husband. He is the best thing that has ever happened to me. Like I'm so thankful for him. Like
He seems so amazing. I've seen like your
I
every time you guys post anything, I'm like, oh my God, that's the love that I want. It's the cutest thing.
Thank you, thank you. I am truly thankful for him entirely. He has seen my growth and my progression, and I love him forever. And I want him to succeed, and I want him to live the most passionate life that he wants, because he deserves that. Because he's one of the most beautiful people, if not the most beautiful person that I have ever met on this earth. And I'm so thankful for him. And so I love him. I love him. I love my husband. But in I feel like in this development and growth, in terms of love and appreciation that we have for each other, and respect and passion for each other, there was that took some time. That took, we had to fight for it. We had to make decisions for each other, about each other, and really put our egos aside, and really do what was best for us. And and that took some time, and we had some time apart, in our mid 20s, and that's when I became, I started my digital marketing career, and I really became my own individual person, separate from being in a relationship with my husband. And before that, we were in a 4-year relationship. So we were together from when we were 18 to like 22. We broke up and they got back together around 26, 27. So there was some years that we grew up on our own, and those years were extremely important to me. I realized what codependency was, after a friend had talked to me, after there was, me and my husband, we dated other people in between when we were broken up. And I had a relationship that failed, in between, my husband, my first relationship with my husband, and then what the relationship that we eventually got married into. I had another relationship that didn't work out, and a friend really, highlighted and really took me out and sat me down and explained to me, what a codependent relationship was. And it was something that I think after he was expressing it, I was like, yeah, of course. I was like, yes, I know that. Like that's exactly what it was. Like, what's wrong with
Yeah.
that? And I didn't realize that that's not healthy. That's not something that it's just not healthy for an individual. And I had to unlearn that was not that was like, I had to learn that was not okay, because I thought that codependent relationship was how I was going to survive in this world. I became such a
Yeah.
people pleaser that my relationship manifested in that, and my relationship with my husband the first time manifested as that as well. And I was codependent on my husband for a lot of things. I was codependent on my husband, because his family took me in for some time, because there was, issues with me and my family, with me being gay, and I became codependent on him for validation in a
Mm.
multitude of factors. And it took that breakup, us breaking up that first time, for me to really stand on my own 2 feet, and develop a name for myself. And that's when I went off and got my master's, and I went off and started my digital marketing career, which I'm so thankful for, those experiences. And I moved, out on my own. I moved to West Hollywood and lived out there for 5, 6 years, and grew into my own individual person as a gay man. And I had to live a single gay man's life. I think that's really important, to experience what being an LGBT individual is in this world.
Would you say that that definitely impacted your mental health and, finding yourself and becoming more independent and healing those parts of yourself that needed to be healed?
100%. It allowed me to establish that independence, and to really realize that, codependency, it was a survival tactic for me for the longest time. And, being independent really showed me, and, standing on my own 2 feet, I validated myself that I was capable and I was powerful. And in that power, I could choose happiness and I could choose love every single day in every single action that I do. And it's ultimately once I came to that realization of that power, and ultimately this was a process. Like this wasn't like I woke up overnight and it was like bam. I went to therapy for 2 years, every single week, sometimes multiple times a week, like twice a week. And I worked through a lot of things, and it's what I needed. But standing on my own 2 feet and realizing how powerful I am and that I can choose love and I can choose happiness and I can choose and I have the power to choose, what my actions are, really set me on the path to reset and revisit my passions and to start my chiropractic career. So it's been a whole 360, coming, to everything and hitting a big reset button on my life.
That is amazing. I love to hear stuff like I obviously you heard a little bit of mine. I went through something similar where we all have that one turning point that like we either hit our lowest low. I think that's what it is. I think we hit our lowest low and we sit there and we go, okay, either I can sink or swim. Like, what am I going to do? And you chose to swim. You're like, all right, I'm climbing out of this and I'm going to heal what needs to be healed. I'm going to become my own person and choose love, not see that it's something that you have to have with another person, but it's that something that you choose. Self-love, I feel, in the mental health journey is so huge, and I feel like it can become like a toxic positivity thing, but with the way that you've explained it so eloquently, it's
Thank
more
you.
it's more than that. It's more just knowing that you can provide the things that you deserve and need and want on your own, and being with someone else is an added bonus. And
Yes.
that was my journey with codependency as well, so I resonate with that, and it's very difficult. It's very, very difficult, and same with me. It took a breakup for me to like hit a wall and go, okay.
Right.
Oh yeah. So what would you say was the most key beneficial thing that kind of like put a light bulb up in your head when through your mental health journey through codependency and becoming your own individual?
It's when through therapy, I realized that I was a people pleaser. That I people pleased everyone because I was afraid of letting people in to really see who I was, or I was afraid of being who I, wanted to be. I was, you know, groomed to act a certain way because of my upbringing, and groomed to be and do certain things because I thought, if I was acting on my internal natural aura and own self, that was hateful, that was evil, that was wrong, that was, you're going to hell, you're the devil. I associated all those negative things with characteristics of myself that naturally pulled me. So I had to unlearn a lot of things. I had to unlearn, like, the association with a lot of characteristics that associated with my internalized hate and homophobia for myself, and my unwillingness to walk in my full true self every single day and every single step. And that took practice. Like, I
Mm.
want you to know, like, I failed so many times, like over and over and over again, and I still fail. Like, I am not perfect, and I do not wake up and like live this sunshine, like, and rainbows life every single day. Like,
Like, yeah,
I
not a Disney movie. It's
exactly, it is not that. It is not that. It is never that. Like, some shit's happening. Like we're all experiencing some shit with COVID on top of that. But like some
Yeah.
shit's happening in my life right now, like where I am just like, what the fuck, bro? Like, you know, being
Yeah.
being a student, like again, and like, you know, in this entire process and following my passions, I have learned like humility, empathy, patience, like all these moral attributes that, you know, grind me and test me every single day. And I fail those tests. Like, no, I'm not perfect. So it's this constant, you know, acceptance of that I will make mistakes, but also returning to that center and
Mm,
returning to that, you know, that balance of that I, in every action that I do, I choose love. And you know, if I chose love and it blows up in my face, at least I can say I chose love and I didn't
yeah.
choose something for any egotistical reason.
Exactly. Dude, I noticed very recently I went through something called an ego death, and I feel like that's the same.
Awesome.
You're explaining the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It's eye-opening for sure, but as soon as that ego death happens and you're on that journey of love and self-love and mental health, it's you fall several times. You fall like right on your face and you're going, okay, I got this, and then smack. And then you're like, all right, shit, I gotta get back up and start over
100.
again.
Yes.
But what was
Yes.
that for you finding your center point and what brings you back to being grounded anytime you do have those moments? What is that for you?
You know, there's a lot of them for me. I think one of the major ones is that I actually like in my meditation, and I meditate a lot. You know, it's not like this for me. Meditation is more like this sitting still and thinking and reflecting, you know, on experiences, or you know, just sitting and listening and being still. But in that, you know, meditation, I reflect back to myself, my younger self. You know, in terms of what would my younger self had needed in a role model to get through what he was going through. You know, and that's one of the things that I turn back to. Another one is in my coming out experience, you know, realizing that I deserve love and that I am worthy of love. I think, you know, understanding that in that component and looking back on times where I had was given love and, you know, that I was loved, have always, you know, fueled me to kind of return back to my center. And then most recently, and this is a big one. I think these are two big ones right now in my life. Kind of like professionally and personally,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. Professionally, you know, I love my path in becoming a chiropractor right now. It is everything I would have imagined, and I am learning and growing in all the realms that I am so fortunate to have been given this opportunity to grow in. Because looking back at, you know, the choices that I made, I could have not chosen this. I could have chosen to stay like, you know, at my big boy corporate Fortune 500, you know, job, making six figures and, you know, living the life in West Hollywood and not ever having to worry about X, Y, or Z that I am having to worry about today. But returning back and understanding, you know, that unhappiness that I felt, that lack of passion, that lack of excitement, that lack of love that was there in every single action that I did, that lack of spark, that lack of joy, you know, realizing to come to terms with how I had gotten myself there,
Mm-hmm.
um, humbles me in my path today. It kind of makes me feel thankful for the little wins that I have,
Yeah.
even though, you know, it could be just be like, oh my god, I didn't fail my test today, I got a 71%, thank goodness. Or it could be like, you know, I came up to the mountains today, and you know, realizing and kind of focusing on those little itty bitty wins, every single day, and trying not to, but it's this whole like refocus of balance. Like don't get me wrong, like in that same breath of where, you know, I got a 71%, I'm like, Jordan, you should have studied harder, like what the fuck, man. So coming to that appreciation for where I'm at right now in my own path and my own journey. I made mistakes, and I think, you know, it's important for me to acknowledge the mistakes that I've made. and learning to forgive myself in those mistakes. And I still make mistakes every single day. I probably made like a million today already. So, and then most recently, I kind of mentioned, yeah, professionally, that's what it is. Looking back at my previous career and how, like, I chose to come to chiropractic, and I chose this for myself. But personally, like, my father had a stroke earlier this year in 2020. And it things are different. And I think seeing how it has affected my dad
Mm,
and how my dad is changing from this in
yeah.
the positive and negative ways that are associated with having a stroke, um, makes me, and I'm sorry, this is one of the first times like I've actually really like talked about it too. So
That's
it
okay.
just makes me so thankful that I made decisions to return to my family
Yeah.
after all the bullshit that kind of happened with my coming out experience. And I'm truly thankful for that decision to choose love, because I chose love in this decision to come back to my family, because I was contemplating to remove them entirely from my life because I needed it for my own self growth, and it
Yeah.
was holding me back in so many ways. And so right now, like, personally looking back, how I'm so thankful for that decision, and so thankful in like my decisions, choose my husband as well too. And I'm going to return to that as well. Like, I'm so thankful for my husband, and thankful in my decisions to choose to love my husband and to accept the love that he gives me and to accept him for who he is.
Yeah.
So, I personally, those are things that like I return to help kind of keep me balanced when things kind of get a little rocky.
That is amazing to hear. That's beautiful. I mean, yeah, I think in life, right? It doesn't matter what happens. Like we have to find peace in that chaos. And it seems like that's what you've done is, having a solid mental health foundation and base of a system to bring yourself back into balance is key because, life is life. It's just gonna keep happening and we can't control or predict what will happen. And I'm so sorry to hear about your father, but I'm glad to hear that at least you're closer to your family again and you have that space to have that love and foundation and relationship. I think that's amazing. Do you, while everything, within the chaos, do you have any set routine that you have for your mental health, or are there any actions or yeah, is there a routine that you have just generally?
Yeah, so I actually always try to return to balance. And I think balance is like a big word that has been part of my journey in chiropractic as well. I this path, becoming a doctor, becoming a chiropractor, it's not easy. Like I have a bachelor's, I have a master's, like I'm not like some hill, like I'm an educated individual.
Yeah.
And this is hard. Becoming, I am stressed so often. I have anxiety disorder, not from like life anxiety, from being a student,
Mm.
and in that same breath, like I am aware that this is student anxiety. Like being a student isn't like you experience this, going and experience the real world after college. Like it's different. It's fucked up. School fucks you up.
It does. They don't prepare you for like real life, like
Not at all.
no,
Exactly.
it's like I feel like it within my own Whittier experience, like I experienced real life, not educationally, but like socially. Like I had so many traumatic things happen to me during that time that it forced me to like have these pretty crazy growth moments without realizing it. But then when I came back home, I lived in Whittier for a little bit after I graduated. And then I was like, oh, this is hard. This is tough. I moved right. I was like, nope, I'm going home. I can't do this. And it was incredibly isolating because most of my friends had moved away after they graduated. So I was alone in my own apartment.
Right. You're like, out of here, I'm done.
Yeah, I was like, ooh, and yeah, like there's so many things I had to heal from that I felt like I needed the support from my family, even if they didn't know what was going on, like just indirectly. That was my
Yes.
experience with it. So yeah, school does
Yes.
not prepare you for life outside of it and being an actual adult, you know?
Exactly. And going back to school as an adult, like, and not to say that, the 21 and 22-year-olds who were fresh out of college, and started, the same year with me, that not to say that they're not adults. They are adults. They are
Yeah,
experiencing adult life in their own pace, in their own form. But I was at a completely different point in my adulthood and in my career as well, that I was kind of shocked by the student culture and, like, the university culture that is associated with being a student. It took me some time to adjust, but I think with, being an older student, I was aware of that. I can't let school be my life, because if
yeah,
it becomes my life, I'm going to have the exact same culture shock, like, or mental fuck that you get once you
yeah.
step into the real world after school. Like, let's just be honest with you, and I don't want that for myself, because it was hard, and I don't wish that experience on anyone. And so I find myself, in my personal life, returning to that balancedness, whether that be, and it is like, spending time with my family, spending time with my dad and with my mom and my brothers and my sisters, spending time with my husband, one-on-one time with him, because I truly do cherish our moments together. And I think, me being an older student, it makes me realize, like, my family comes first,
Mm,
100%, always and forever. And when my dad had his stroke, like, my family, like, needed all of us to be there. And I was so shocked that, I was willing to put my education on pause to step up and, like, help my family where they needed to. That was something that blew my mind, in terms of, having this shift of, priorities. And it was an instantaneous, without a doubt, question that I answered for myself. I was like, yes, of course, like, I would do this. And, returning back, and realizing that family was at the core root of my balance, and choosing to be with them and spend time with them and be thankful for them. And even with my husband's family, like, with my in-laws and with my sister-in-law and my nieces and nephews, like, really realizing, these are the individuals, within my life that truly mean and matter to me. And spending and investing quality time with those individuals, you can't put a value on it. And so it has allowed me to achieve that balance from, my stressful life as a student right now, but then also to kind of couple it with a, a beautiful, balanced, personal life that allows me to truly feel centered and feel happy.
that's amazing to hear. That's really, really cool. I really like that. If there is anyone out there listening right now who has gone through, you know, anything or everything that you've been through, what's some advice that you'd want to tell them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think ultimately the first one is, you are loved. I think you deserve love. You are worthy of love. There is nothing wrong with you. You are, like, if you're part of the LGBTQIAA extended ally community, I want you to let you know, you are magical. You are a force to be reckoned with on, like, this planet Earth, and that there's a community and people out there that love you unconditionally, and that, you deserve all the love and all the happiness in the world, because you are a beautiful individual and you deserve nothing but love. That's exactly what I would say to myself, looking back into individuals that have gone through a similar experience, just because I experienced so much hate, so much self-hate, as well, that I don't wish that on anyone, and no one should experience that. And I think ultimately, following that little light that makes you who you are, you're not going to always follow it right the first time. I think, I missed it like 3 or 4 times in my life before I got to some of the stages that I'm at in my life right now. But I think always returning to that light of what that spark that makes you who you are is where you can really find so many answers for the bigger, greater questions that I guess exist out there in the world right now.
Thank you so, so much for coming on here. I really, really appreciate it. And for anyone who wants to know more about Jordan or, follow his social media or what have you, I'll put it in the info of this podcast. And Jordan, if there's anything else you'd like to say.
Yeah, so just thank you so much for having me on. I am truly appreciative of this. And I want to also add on to that, my mental health experience is ever growing, ever changing, ever evolving. I think, at multiple points in my life, it has demanded certain aspects and certain decisions of me and certain, personalities and certain characteristics of myself that I needed to do to be happy and to be loved for myself. And I think that it is an ever growing process. So anything that I said, I just also want to, make it be known that I am still learning in my path and that I'm truly thankful for this experience. And I hope everyone has a beautiful journey in their own self acceptance of themselves and their own journey in mental health because I truly think that everyone can grow and learn and evolve, and we can just learn to be an overall better human being by learning more about ourselves and learning about the values that truly make us who we are and the love we choose to give and receive ourselves. I don't know, this has been the first time for me, so it's been really cool to have and step up to the plate like this and share my experiences on this platform. So thanks again.
Thank you so much for listening. And remember, you have to go through the eye of the storm to see the clear horizon ahead. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll see you next week.